What is up? What is up? Salute, grace and peace to everybody that's coming through. To my Lotus, I see you. So let me just clear out this over here. All right, and so just give us a couple of seconds. I sounded the alarm. I noticed Lotus was here. And anybody wants to chat today, they can. I will put the link into the chat section so that if we want to have an open dialogue, we can. I would like that very, very much. So, all right. So today's Mindful Monday. We got a Mindful Monday today on a Monday. Mindful number 26. And that is revisiting the book, 100 amazing facts about the Negro, with complete proof by J.A. Rogers. This cover, from what I've been told, is not the accurate. There's another cover that has the Empress of Ethiopia sitting on her throne, and it's a white colored book, or cover rather. So, if anybody's interested in getting that or getting this book, that's the book that you need to look out for. So just give me a second. Okay, so I don't want this to drag on too much longer. I'm just trying to wait for the troop to come through. Come on through. But it is kind of a last minute Mindful Monday, me going live. So sounding the alarm 20 minutes, 30 minutes beforehand, it's not a really good look. However, if you're meant to be here to watch this, you're here to watch this. And those who cannot will definitely catch the replay. So yeah, today I am discussing the book, revisiting this book, because we are going to have these conversations in regards to the black and white controversy, even though we don't, I loathe it. But it has to be talked about. And, knowing, your roots and knowing where you reside, or not reside, but knowing your roots, your heritage is very important. It's key. I'm going to grab my book. Hold on a second, guys. Okay. So I have been doing my own research. It's an ongoing research in regards to my family's, um, you know, I guess you want to call it DNA, but it's genealogy as opposed to DNA. It wasn't until my grand aunt, maybe some four, maybe about 5, 6 years ago, went and did the ancestry um, DNA and got some not clarification, but she got some results back that showed. Um, I'm just getting my records here. So this is a cute little book that my oldest, my daughter, got me. Discover Who You Are, a Family Tree Workbook. And so this is good to have if you want to dive into genealogy, and it directs you to where you need to go in regards to genealogy. Why am I bringing all this up? Because in J.A. Rogers' book, and I have some tabs here that I want to discuss specifically in regards to slavery, because some of us need to know that it wasn't just African slaves or indigenous slaves. There were also, unbeknownst to some of us, there were white slaves here. There were German, there were Russian, European slaves. And so some of us in our families' DNA, we have some of that incorporated. And when you start going past the levels of, being this and being that, and you're being a label, right? You can understand and appreciate, that it all boils down to you were everything and then some, first and foremost. So everything that's been copycat, duplicated, yes, melanated people for the most part created a lot of things. All right. Let me also get another book by my good brother Truth Kalani, Chief Kalani. So bear with me. There may be some internet interruptions. Okay, so we had some internet interruptions there. I guess me being my greatest may be some issues. So pardon me in advance. There may be some internet situations. Okay, and a fair use disclaimer. This is for educational, entertainment and educational purposes, but this is for us to do our own due diligence, our own research, and find out things on our own, not just off of face value, not off of just YouTube and Instagram and things like that, right? But to actually get some of these books and do your own history and research. All right. I'm peeling in the backdrop. I am peeling a blood fruit raspberry orange. So I'm a little preoccupied while I'm talking to you all. But that is a snack/lunch. All right. So on my mother's side of the family, so my grandmother, her mother and her father, my grandmother's father, are both natives and indigenous people to the island of Jamaica. Now, my mother's father's side of the family would be my mother's great-grandmother, comes from the island of Grenada, also in the Caribbean islands, or West Indies, as some know it to be. And on my biological father's side, it's Cuban. And I'm not sure if it's Puerto Rican. I know for sure it's Cuban. my biological father's mother was Cuban. So I don't know any back history about that side of the family. I know a lot about my mother's side of the family. I am third generation born an American citizen, but my great grandparents were not citizens of the United States. They were citizens of Jamaica, and then when they came to America, they became nationalized citizens in 1920. So also come to find out that the going into my family's history, again, on my mother's side, my Lotus is here. Thank you, Lotus. Love you. On that side of the family, this is all through oral tradition. So we have what would be my great grandfather's mother, and this is circa 1858 through 1943. She passed away. So again, and I'm also going to bring up Donald Trump. I know some, can care less for him, but he had brought up something that I found profound while watching Dane Calloway, excuse me. And I know some people don't care for Dane Calloway as well. But his title on his on all his streaming platforms is Instagram and YouTube is "I'm just here to make you think." Okay, no problem. I hear you. I was thinking about doing coffee too, but I got my water and I got some oranges, so no problem. Get yourself relaxed and get your stuff and come back if you can. Let me get my stupid cat open because the cat, the door scratching. But anyway, guys, right? So I'm putting a pin in my family history really quickly and talking about Dane Calloway. Now, Dane Calloway is a YouTube. He's a content creator, and he talks about, he has a plethora of amount of information in regards to his family being indigenous natives to the Americas, specifically North America, specifically even more specific is Virginia and the Carolinas, etc. So he's done his own research, he's done his own homework, and this is what we need to be doing now. So you get the backlash of that. You get him going in about, foundationally Black Americans. Who is that? How does that work out? If you are claiming that you have African ancestry DNA, right? Like and I get what he's saying. And his title says, "I'm just here to make you think." And that's really all that he's here to do. He's not twisting anybody's arm. He has his own research. He's dug up so much information in just his family's history alone that, he can trace back and go a couple of centuries and know that his family was here. And so, I'm circling around in the wagon because I want us to feel this narrative out, right? Get a consensus of what I'm trying to speak about today and make us think. And with the 100 Amazing Facts of the Negro, again, this book cover is not the same book cover as the original. The original has an melanic Ethiopian, his empress sitting on a throne. It's a white cover, and that's the one that you want to look into. You want to get if you don't have that book already. If you have this one, or you have one that was from Lewis Gates, I mean, you have it. That's fine. it's really to just get through the message, right? To read. But at some point you want to get, because I'm going to actually get the other book that has the actual cover. Because I was told by Brother Severe Bay that this is not the actual, like the numbering and things are off as well. So, but Dane Calloway, you know, people come after him and, you know, they're like, oh, he's pseudo, you know, he's you know, off the rails with this whole, you know, indigenous Americans. And what he's trying to let people know is that you are not only just, if you want to claim African, you are not only just that. Like half and more than half actually are families here in the Americas. So you get like a brother Chief Kalani, right? That his family's background is now I can't even pronounce it, but I will try. Is Anyunya and Chickasaw American. And he was born in the Texas territory. All right. And if you look at him, you can find him on Instagram. Brother Truth is his name on Instagram. And his website is I Self Law Am Master. And, you know, if you look at this brother, you could definitely see that he has, you know, indigenous features. Okay. So we're not trying to dismiss somebody having African DNA. Now, going back to my family's African DNA, again, I'm talking on my mother's side of the family and her mother's mother and my grandmother's father. So my grand aunt, who was my sister, who's my grandmother's sister, my grandmother's no longer here with us in the physical. When she did the Ancestry.com, she got 31% Ivory Coast and Ghana, 15% Benin, Togo, and 14% Cameroon, 14%, and then we got the other 8% African East Bantu. So the highest percentage, if you want to go by percentile, is the Ivory Coast and Ghana, which would be on my great grandfather's side. And that is my mother's grandfather, that is my mother's grandfather, my grandmother's father, and that is my great grandfather. Okay. Now, also there was a mixture, of course there is, of European descent, and this would be by the way of a Henry Walker Haynes, and he was he was born in colonial Jamaica to the biracial couple Henry R.D. Phillips, a white man, and the black wife Elizabeth Phillips, niece Michael of Davidton in central Manchester, Jamaica, on August 14th, 1890. Carolyn then went on to get married to Henry Walker Haynes. He's a son, Robert Haynes, of a carpenter, and Elizabeth Haynes, who were established in the Haynes family. And one of the families of Davidton. Oral history has indicated that her husband came from the Belle Eyrie and St. Helena plantation, which estates owned by Isabel Rome Davy, a mixed race woman, and her white husband. So there were some slaves. There is, but this is in Jamaica, that, you know, my family, some ancestry elders, they were slaves on a plantation. And then there was that mixed marrying with the great grandmother of mine to the Mr. Henry R.D. Phillips, which produced my great grandmother. Okay. So also from oral family tradition stories, it is said that the Haynes family was from West Africa in the origins of present day Ghana. So when my grand aunt did her ancestry DNA, yes, 31% showed and came back Guyanese. Guyanese, Ghana. But so that's just a third of African, right? Then they have Scottish descent. Also, on my great grandmother's side, there's Scottish descent as well. But we also come to understand that there were melanated Scottish and Irish people. So this is why I'm saying we have to do our due diligence in research, because you won't know. You're out here claiming to be something and you really don't know who you are. And this is just for a small percentage of people. This is not the people who are really understanding and knowing that they are everything, that they have, just because your skin complexion may be different, it's the blood, it's the DNA that is going to set the mark. It's not just the complexion of your skin. So yes, you may be of a melanated complexion, a darker hue, and there's similarities to that being of the Africans. All right, but that doesn't necessarily make you related, right? We'll just say cousin and we'll say brother affectionately, but DNA will show that no, you're not connected, or yes, you are connected. So in this case, because it was orally for such a long time, and again, nobody talked about this African ancestor in my family. So I didn't know. This just came to me October 29, 2022. So that was last year, and even less than a year, right? Because that's November, December, January, February, March. That's 5 months ago that I got this information. And until then, and my aunt doing the ancestry back in June 2022, we didn't know about African. We didn't talk African. We didn't say anybody's from Ghana. We just knew our family hailed from Manchester, Jamaica, and Ora Cabeza in Jamaica. And that's just my mother's side of the family. On my mother's father's side of the family, my grandfather's grandmother was from Grenada, again in the West Indies. And I believe that his father was of Jamaican descent. And I'm not sure as far as any European, I don't know the backdrop of that side of the family, but that is where this little gift of mine is coming from, unbeknownst to myself. So, my grand aunt gave me, a little family tree and wrote down, who everybody is, where they're coming from. So we have an understanding in my family of where we're coming from. Brother Maybach's in the building. Brother Maybach, if you can, I'm dropping the link. So if you can come up here and join me, I would really appreciate that. If you can. I know, it's the middle of the afternoon and things like that. So where I'm just starting in. I really haven't gotten into the book yet, but I'm just giving a little backdrop into my family history and learning about, yes, there is a quarter of African DNA in somewhere along in my mother's grandfather's father's side of the family, right? So when we're talking about things like the 100 amazing facts of the Negroes, and we're talking about slavery, we have to understand, like, it's not just melanated people that were slaves. In here, I'm going to go over it where they're tagged at, is white European slaves that were brought over to North America and became slaves to Negro holders. I needed to bring this up again because I talked about this last week on my other channel, and I wanted to kind of, that's not where I had what I had plans for that channel there, and I wanted to bring it over to here. All right, so we got internet. Like I said, just be warned that my internet somehow is acting up over here, so I may be in and out and out. But yeah, we need to keep having these discussions and keep applying pressure, because people are starting to catch on. People are starting to realize that, hey, yeah, I can say African because people want to have this notion about, the end all be all is with Africa, and then it's you're poo-pooing on where your mother's family's from, or what I mean, like like the Caribbean people are having this. They're kind of like in their head. Some of them are about, oh, we all African, we all came from Africa. Oh, we all came from Africa, yada yada yada. Also, I'm going to fair use. I'm bringing up a segment that was in Dane Calloway. Again, some people may not, they don't really care for him. I'm not debating him. I'm not debating any of what he's saying, because that's not what we're here for today. We're here to learn. Boost is in the building. Salute, Booster. Thank you. We're not here to do the debate thing. We're not. If you don't like what the man is talking about, that's fine. That's your personal feelings. I just take information wherever I can. It's not about, oh, I like him and I like what he's saying. His title of his show is, I'm here to make you think. I'm just here to make you think. And that's really what I'm here to do as well, is make us think. Whether you're falling in suit with what I'm saying or you really don't care about it, it's fine. Either way, it's fine. But we have to get this information out here, because for so long, for decades, even centuries, we've been fed a one-track narrative that's telling us, yeah, the slave ships all came from over there, got the African, brought them over here to the Caribbeans, and not knowing that some of the Caribbean people were actually brought over to Europe on your so-called slave ships. Okay. So we're going to tell the story. We're going to tell it all this time. We're not going to cherry pick what we want. We're not going to cherry pick to make it sound cute. We're not giving it a Disney fantasy tale. We're making this, it's not going to be a nice a pill to swallow. It could be bitter, but we need to get this information out. We have to talk about it because it's still prevalent. You got people talking about, you made back, we got people out here talking about they're fighting for, I don't even know if they're fighting, but they want to protest about this reparations. And I was just talking to my master teacher before I got on here, and I started breaking stuff down to her, and she was like, yeah, well, then I don't know. And my mother's going to be 70 this year. And when I told her, and she said, who was showing that the African chiefs were giving out their people to the colonizers? She said, in Shaka Zulu. Now, some of us may not remember that TV show, mini-series, but I do, and it was good. And yeah, your African family members, if that's what you want to call them, was selling you out. So where are you getting, what reparation are you getting? Are you looking to the Europeans? And you're saying, oh, you took over my land, and Now we want it back, and we want all the 40 acres and the mule. And my mother said, listen, I don't want no 40 acres and a mule. She said, I'm not out here looking for that. Because you know what? It's not. How does that happen? First of all, you're categorizing yourself as Black. Now, when we go into Brother Truth Kalani's book, we're talking about what is Black. Hold on, because I got it marked. All right, on page 51 in one of his books, this is the first part of his series to a 3-part book series, the Remedy series. All right, I'll leave his information in there. You guys can go check him out on his website, and go to his Instagram, and you can follow him there. I've been talking about this man for the past 2 years. You know, this is nothing new. I've even met him, and I went to his workshops. He talks about changing, you know, if you want to change from the corporation and become and go back into your sovereign state, he will help you with this. Okay. So let's do a little bit of history in regards to you calling yourself Black. All right. First of all, we need to know, and as some of us do know, that the United States is a corporation. United States of America is the land. Okay. So a citizen of the United States is a civilly dead entity. All right. I will repeat that again. A citizen of the United States, he has citizen in quotation marks, is civilly, CIVILLY, dead entity, referring to you calling yourself a Black American. And it's a civilly dead entity operating as a co-trustee and a co-beneficiary of the PCT, the Constructive Cestus Qua or Q Trust of the U.S. Inc. under the 14th Amendment, which upholds the debt of the United States, of the USA and the U.S. Inc. in Section 4. So there again, we need to get our Constitution. We need to read the fine print. We need to read what the 14th Amendment says in extent, because it's telling you when you now change that over and you're ticking off on your senses or what have you, this is why they know that you're not going to get anything, because you keep categorizing yourself as the crayon. And they know that the crayon, meaning Black, is civilly dead. Now, trust that none of this was done by accident, all right? And not only in the 1871, when this change, this amendment came about, but the House of Representatives also ceased recognition of individual tribes. Because remember, America is what? A nation that has many tribes in it, right? So the House of Representatives ceased to recognize individual tribes. So there goes your Chickasaw, there goes your Blackfoot, there goes your Algonquin, there goes your Iroquois, there goes your Samoan, right? Because those are tribes. Are they not? And so the U.S. representative says, because they know that you were a sovereign person. You governed your own land. You were operating already with your own jurisdictions and your own rules and your own accordances. You were already functioning for their implement and their government, right? So the House of Representatives also ceased recognition of individual tribes within the U.S. as independent nations with whom the United States could contract by treaty, ending the nearly 100-year practice of treaty making between the U.S. and the American Indian tribes. Okay. Trust that this was not done by accident, but part of the design. And now, since they chartered a federally company titled the United States Inc., their mission was to naturalize American Indians from their tribal nations and convert them to U.S. citizens. Right? So now we can market you. You don't have any say-so. You're nothing now, because why? After they have turned and naturalized you from your tribal nations and converted you into U.S. citizens, to now be called Black, African, slave descents, Negroes, Coloreds, Latinos, etc. As a result, many tribal Americans were stripped of their land, birthright, and national heritage that attached them to territorial claims and treaty protections. Once Aboriginal Americans identified as Blacks, Afro-Americans, Colored, etc., they immediately lost all of their sovereign power and subject themselves to being 14th Amendment chattel slave. All right. At the same time, taking the mixed breed American subjects and putting them on reserved lands throughout the United States and identifying them as Native Americans who they no longer had legal obligation to sign treaties with. Keep in mind the true definition of American, according to the 1828 Webster's Dictionary, is a native of America, originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found here by the Europeans. Wally's in the house. Salute, Wally. Yeah, I'm gonna, kind of finish this up, and then I will open up the lines for you guys can come through, and let's talk about these things. Let's talk about this situation, this topic. Okay, so a native in the Webster's Dictionary 1828, a Native of American means originally a Native of American originally applied to the Aboriginals or copper-colored races found by the Europeans, but now applied to the descendants of Europeans born in America. So you see how they did the old switcheroo? You see how they did that? Ponder on that for a second while I let my other cat now out of my room. Freaking bastards. Ugh, got my damn nerves. So they know that I'm here doing my thing. So isn't that not deep, guys? So they stripped you of your rights. They know who you are. Stripped you of your rights. Classified you as something else. So how are you getting and what are you getting? What are you going to get now? What are you entitled to? Oh, and by the way, now the Europeans that were born here or mixed in with the Aboriginals, as they call it, they get citizenship rights. Ooh, doesn't that sound like what's going on right now? You got the foreigners and the migrants and the immigrants coming over, and guess what? They're getting just about everything, if not anything, that the citizen of the United States has worked hard for, and these people are getting free services. So again, talking about J.A. Rogers, if you're just tuning in, but I'm going in a roundabout way because I want to get the cohesiveness of, it's not just black and white, right? But it is. But there's some things that we need to know about first before we start aggressively going after certain people and demanding that you want X, Y, and Z back. So how do you claim, right? Because then you got Pan-Africanism and, we're Africans and, we're roundabout way over there. But some of you don't look like that. Some of you look indigenous to the land here. So on Dane Calloway, again, however you want to like him or not, whatever. I was listening to his podcast the other day, and he was talking about, the title was Not Letting History Repeat Itself, right? And on there, he had a clip or an excerpt of Donald Trump back on June 24th, 2020. It was an interview when he was in the White House by Fox News. Now, we know Fox News is, right, how credible, but nonetheless, there were some things that Donald Trump was saying that spiked my spidey senses. So he was saying, we're in a war with history. And he's right. Because at that point, people were dismantling and demolishing statues. And that's what he was referencing, that statement was, because people were taking down these slave holders' statues. And this was coming off the heels of the George Floyd situation. And people demanding, take these slave owners' statues down, like a Ulysses S. Grant, like Thomas Jefferson, all the ones that you can think of, right? And it was going across the country of dismantling and taking down statues of slave owners, right? Specifically white European slave men, slave holders to, do we say African slaves? All right. So Trump says so the interview was saying to him, we yet not forget our past. Trump was saying this, rather, excuse me. So you have to understand history, and you have to understand the culture and so many aspects of our country. And people can study that and they can hate it. You know how Trump talks in double entendre language, double talk. So basically he's saying, like, you got to understand the history of this country. And some of you are going to hate it, and some of you are going to get it. And it's like, okay, I understand it now. But he says, but you can't take down George Washington's statue when half the country is named after Washington, right? So he's making like a little joke about, like, okay, you take a statue down, but there's so many schools and so many streets named after Washington, like what? So now we're going to go on a witch hunt to like dismantle all of that. So he's like, just know your history, like, and then because he's like, it doesn't bother him, and his history, and I'm going to dive into J.A. Rogers, is he's of German descent. In the book, 100 Amazing Facts about the Negro, the Germans and white European Germans at that were brought here to the Americas as slaves. And they weren't enslaved by other white European people, but in fact, Negroes is how it's worded in the book. Trump was asked about the so-called African Americans that do support him, but strongly disagree with continuing to allow racial problematic figures to stay displayed and commemorated as prominent historical monuments in America. And his response, since you've done a lot of African American community, since you have done a lot for the African American community, what's your message to them who said my ancestors were enslaved because of their message that we have a great, I might have wrote it wrong. Who said they were enslaved, being that their ancestors were enslaved here in America, their African American community. And he goes on to say, we have to go back in history, and we should learn from history. And if you don't understand history, you're going to go back and forth with this, the race debate, basically. And you have to learn, think of it, you go take a whole era, you're going to go back into to it. Sometimes people won't know about. So basically what he was saying, because I think I was on the phone with my mom talking at the same time. So basically what he was saying, what Donald Trump was saying, is that you have to know your history. You need to know your personal history, and then you need to know the history of the land where you live, so that it clears out some confusion, it clears out some animosity, it clears out some anger, and has revelation to you where you're like, oh, okay, so I get why this happened now. And then you choose to move forward however you want and need to. Okay. So I'm just going to talk about the slavery part here in Amazing Facts, and then I will open up the line for everyone to come up if they would like. All right. So again, the word slavery, or the word slave, was originally applied to white people. It comes from Slav, S-L-A-V, a Russian people captured by the Germans. So they were talking about this slave stuff. This wasn't, African Americans saying that. This is already a title, but was given to white Germans enslaved by Russians. By the Russians, calling these Germans slaves. Okay. The first slave held in the United States were not black, but white. And they were European, mostly British. In Virginia, white servitude was for a limited period, but was sometimes extended for life. White people were sold in the United States up until 1826. White people were sold in the United States up to 1826. That's 50 years after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. And also, no, I think it's in here as well. There were a lot of abandoned white children that were put into servitude as well. And I know some may be like, oh, I don't care. I don't want to hear about the white person. But we can't cherry pick history anymore, guys. We can't. Because that's what's gotten us into this predicament right now. It's the cherry picking certain history to make it fit the narrative They won't catch on. They're not going to know. They don't reading books. And anyone who does read a book, you become dangerous. I.e. Nat Turner, i.e. Frederick Douglass. They don't want the smart Negro. I will continue. Between 1526 and 1859, there were 33 slave revolts in the United States, one of which was that headed by Nat Turner in Virginia, 1831. So we've heard of slave revolts in the Caribbean, especially Haiti and Jamaica with the Maroons. But there was actually some revolts that were happening here in the United States, or excuse me, in America, between the years 1526 and 1859. The Somalians, or runaways of mixed Indian and Negro descent of Florida, fought 3 wars with the United States to preserve their freedom. The Seminoles. Mixed Indian and Negro. So what they're saying is indigenous mixed with African. Okay. Remember that they were doing the okie doke with the title changing. All right. Here, white children were kidnapped in the British Isles at the rate of several thousand yearly in the 17th and 18th centuries and sold into slavery in America and the West Indies. Where's my pen at? Because we're going to learn today. As they say, God today. All right. I have to mark that off. Let me repeat that little sentence there. White children were kidnapped. Amazing fact number 67. White children were kidnapped in the British Isles at the rate of several thousand yearly in the 17th and 18th centuries and sold into slavery in America and the West Indies. Okay. Now, they got it too. And guess what? They were enslaved by Negro holders. White Americans North and South were also kidnapped or seduced and sold as Negroes as late as 1859. One of the most celebrated cases of a white person sold as a Negro was Sally Muller, who was held in servitude in Louisiana for 26 years. Court after court ruled against her. Finally, her birth certificate was dug up in Germany, and she was freed by the Supreme Court in 1818. Amazing fact number 69. In 1860, there were 487,000 free Negroes in the United States, some whom owned slaves. Now we're talking about free Negroes. And not a little drop in the bucket. This was 487,000 in 1860. So when you think back 1860, we go into our time travel, our DeLorean, our H.G. Wells time machine. That's not that far back. And there were 487,000 free Negroes that owned slaves. C.D. Wilson estimates that there were 6,230 Negro slave holders. The tax returns of South the tax returns of Charleston, South Carolina for 1860 showed 132 Negro slaveholders with 390 slaves. The Negro slaveholders, like the white ones, fought to keep their chattels in Civil War. Now, I'm going to stop for a second right there because I'm going to go back to the Remedy book. And when we talked about the chattel, that's in the 14th Amendment. And you are considered a chattel slave by identifying yourself as Black, Afro-American, colored, Negro, because a citizen of the United States is civilly dead. It's a dead entity operating as a co-trustee and co-beneficiary of the PCT. Okay? And we're going to get what the PCT is. And now, the December 6, 1865, the 14th Amendment was proclaimed as ratified. Right? So let's listen to this time frame. December 6, 1865, right? And when were these white slaves here? White Americans North and South were also kidnapped and seduced and sold as Negroes as late as 1859. So before the 14th Amendment, there were, and I believe that's probably why they did that 14th Amendment, because white people was like, we're not. Nope. There was the revolts, right? 1526 and 1859. Between 1526 and 1859, there were 33 slave revolts in the United States. The United States Marines and 2 warships were sent against Nat Turner after he had killed 55 whites and captured several plantations. Yeah, Nat Turner was a big headache for them. He was a problem. And we moved down to 1860, still 5 years before the 14th Amendment. Right, in 1865, you had about 487,000 free Negroes. And they were slave owners to white slaves. All right, let's move on to the next part. Still in slavery. For Nat Turner's insurrection, see authentic and partial narrative of the tragic event, Southampton County, published by Warner and West, 1831, Anglo-African magazine. So this is where J.A. Rogers got his information in regards to what Nat Turner did, okay? The word Seminole means runaway or fugitive. The Seminoles were chiefly fugitive Indian and Negro slaves and corresponded to the Maroons of Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti, and South America. They fought 3 wars with the United States. See, and because the Maroons traveled up, you had a lot of them that were migrating from the Caribbean islands up to the States by Florida, by ways of Florida, and then traveling up north through that, what we call Interstate 95 now, but there, that's in my head, that's what I'm looking at. And so you had these Seminoles or Maroons travel as far up as Georgia. And so Maroons, when you look and you dig in, they are yes, there is African there, but they're also indigenous to Caribbean, which would be your Arawak and Tainos, right? So they don't want to tell you all of that. They don't want you to hear this type of information because it's easier to keep us lost and confused, out to sea, because that's the language that they speak. All this is regarding the wars of the water, right? Wars of history. So if we keep certain people docile, we pump them up with all kinds of stuff, additives, they're not going to know any better. We keep sending them distractions. They're not going to know any better. Ooh, my beauty queen's in the building. Salute, salute. They're not going to know any better. Right? So here, C.M. McInnes says of the West Indies, the white servants were often placed under black overseers who treated them with particular barbarity. As the blacks born in the islands acquired a knowledge of handicraft, the white servants were compelled to do the roughest, hardest work in the fields. This is coming from the book, An Introduction to the Economic History of the British Empire, page 31 through 35, London, 1935. Okay. So the white servants was doing that work. And they were doing the manual labor out in the Caribbean. I just read to you not too long, about a minute or two ago, of how they were getting the children imported out to Jamaica and Cuba and Haiti and doing their dirty work. It is well known that many poor Anglo-Americans, aka white, children are sold as slaves. Sometimes the poor whites of the South sell their children to dealers, and it is notorious that the habit of hunting for white children in the states of the North is ever increasing. This is all coming out of a book that J.A. Rogers did his research on. All right. Cromwell, we know about Cromwell from Britain, from London, ordered 7,000 of Irish to be sold as slaves to the West Indies. Later prisoners, even political rebels, were sold in a large number as slaves. Concerning the great extent of white slavery in America, consults also Bundesstaat und, these are German words, Bundeskur, page 51, 1886, quoted from F. Hertz, Race and Civilization, page 328, London, 1928, trans by Levitus and Enns. So this is the information that J.A. Rogers got to get to compose this book. All right. So the U.S. Census of 1790 showed 100 Negro slaveholders, of whom 6 were in Connecticut and 9 in New York. In 1830, there were about 4,500 Negro slaveholders. And in 1836, slaves owned by Negroes in New Orleans numbered 640. On Negro slaveholders, see Popular Science Monthly, that's in the magazine, 1912, by Carter G. Woodson, C.G. Woodson, Free Negro Owners of Slaves. And then we have a miscellaneous in this book. Black and colored, on the other hand, have no historical meaning whatsoever for African people. Let me read this again, because this is where we're having this hang up of, because you had people reclassifying you as black and colored, and they did the okie doke by taking, as I said, America is a sovereign country with sovereign tribes, sovereign nations all throughout the Americas. That now you have the colonizers, where you got colony, come through, dismantle all the tribes, and then start creating these rules and regulations and amendments and declarations and proclamations to then reclassify you as Negro, colored, black. And when you look up in the Webster Dictionary what native means, they knew it to be copper-colored aboriginals of the Americas. And they were noticed by Europeans their complexion, and they called them Native Indians. All right, so from black, from the Anglo-Saxon, bleak, or B-L-A-E-C, has most horrible meanings. See any large dictionary. And colored is related to Latin clair, slare or slare. I'm not sure how to pronounce this. It's C-E-L-A-R-E. To conceal, to color up, to paint a thing other than its true light. That's what the word colored means in the dictionary. Thus, the tendency to decree Negro on the ground that it means slavery is sheer ignorance. You see the spell casting that these people did? The hoodwink. And so now we're out here running around in circles trying to figure it out. All because other people have told us who we are. Black, which, as was said, is positively a white man's word. Black. Which that word just came about within the last century. And of course, there is only one race, the human race. But of all the names used by the stronger group in America to set the dark-skinned citizens apart, Negro is the least objectable. So Negro is the better of calling yourself a colored, calling yourself an African American, calling yourself black. Okay. And not only is it a very ancient, but it has a record in America for 4 centuries of fortitude, meaning the term Negro, endurance, and survival power, rare in the annals of mankind. Negro is making splendid progress towards prestige in such terms as Negro spirituals. You ever heard of that? The Negro spirituals or Negro hymnals? Listen. Negro boxer, Negro music, Negro athlete, Negro soldier, Negro loyalty. I mean, this is why we need to get this book and other books that are talking about the German white slaves here in America. Uh, Again, some people, oh, well, I don't care about hearing about no white people. I don't care about that. Listen, you ought to. You know why? Because we have to do double jeopardy here. We have to go back a few steps and understand where, you know, where the damage control started, so that we can move forward. Yes, you have to look at your past to know where you were at and where you're going to move to your future. And know these people's laws here. Know that the Declaration of whatever 14th Amendment is telling us that we are chattel slaves. We're still in the corporation. So you going on about whether you're fundamentally black person, or you are an African American is baby piss water. You know why? Because the government is not looking at that. They want to know, do you know what nation you're from? They respect the sovereign. They respect the Negro. I just read to you, it's the most acceptable out of all the names they want to call so-called melanated people. And this is not to, yes, when we talk in terms, we'll use the words black, right? You know, or you may say colored, right? Because we even growing up as a kid, like if you heard colored and you said colored, somebody's like, you know, that is offensive. Negro even at one point to me was sounding offensive. And so black didn't sound so bad because it was more mainstream, right? And I'm 46 years old, so this was in the late 80s. But we talked nationalities. Again, some of us here in the live and some watching, myself included, we have Caribbean descent. So it's like we knew who we belonged to. We knew that, you know, even if there was some Jamaican, some African DNA, we knew it was a small percentage. And it's not that we didn't want to big that part up. It's just that that's not us. Even if it's a part of us, it wasn't all of us. It wasn't like my family has Guyanese, Ghanaian. A pure Ghanaian ancestor, then being brought over as a slave and then mixing with one of my ancestors, and that's half of a Ghanaian with half of an indigenous or a full-blooded indigenous person in Jamaica. Then I can see the significance of, yes, saying, yeah, you know, we're half African, or of course, like we only got like a third of African DNA in my mother's family tree. And no one talked about it. Like I said, I just got this paperwork from my aunt back in October of 2022, where through oral history, and then my aunt I think she did the ancestry.com, maybe 2018 or something like that, or 17. I know she had did it a couple of years ago, but about 5-6 years ago. And the results came back at 31% Ivory Coast, Ghana. So this corroborates what her family, her father's family, has said orally in regards to, West Africa and Guyana. But it's 31%. That's a pretty big percent compared to Benin and Cameroon, which is 15%, 14%. Yeah, that's a big significant. But they never talked about African family members. We just didn't do it. So we always just knew our family. I now on my mother's father's side, my mother's grandmother is coming from Grenada. So again, that's Caribbean. And then my biological father, like I said, his mother is Cuban, and I believe, not 100% sure if the father was Cuban and Puerto Rican, or I know he was also of Latin, descent. So in my family on my mother's side, they had mentioned there was Scottish on both sides of my mother's grandparents. So again, we just talked about those things, but we never really spoke about the African. It didn't come up until just recently. But that's not for me to go pack my bags and talking about I'm going over there. And that's my motherland. No, my motherland is in Manchester and Orca Cabeza, Jamaica, West Indies. And my homeland is here in America. And truth be told, if that's motherland in Africa, who's grandma? Okay, I'm about to drop the link, guys. So if anybody wants to come up and chime in, please do so. I know this was a impromptu live Mindful Monday. I apologize, but this, how this goes. It gets a little sporadic at times. And like I said, I wanted to talk about this here. I was talking a little bit about this topic last Wednesday on my other channel, Foxy Moon Premieres, and but I wanted to get a little bit more homework added to it, and I was going to be the El Dorado, but I said no, I'm going to revisit 100 Amazing Facts, and let's talk about that a little bit, because I'm in areas that are what you would call pro-Black, and so and when I hear certain right, Lotus, sometimes you just gotta go on the fly, and then sometimes, like, spirit has you move, you just kind of go with the flow. And I had this lined up for the weekend, and the weekend just flew by me, and I didn't. Sunday I was going to put this up so I can send it to you guys, at least give you a night ahead. But yeah, so I'm in these arenas where, like I said, it is mostly for the most part pro-Black, right? So in arguments purpose and in all intents purposes, I will use the term or the word Black, but we need to know that that term, that word is not even highly favored. They would rather you be recognized as a Negro than as some coloring. So drop the link if anybody is interested in coming up here. Brother Maybach, I know you are busy. And if you can, you will. I know you will. But I just, so what I'm saying is that I'm in these spaces that can sometimes be a little one-sided, because it is a pro-Black arena or arenas. And people really need to get re-educated on what's really good, what's behind the scenes, because it's not all just pro-black. And like I said, I'm there. But when you pull the scales back and you unpeel the layers, these people did damage control to almost everybody. And when I mean damage control, is they started reclassifying people, and then fed you a narrative that slave ships came over here, and these Europeans roped them all up and stuff like that, and fought the Africans from the coast, and got all these slaves on the ships. And I'm like, oh, okay. But now I don't want to be spoon-fed that. I don't want baby spoons anymore. I want the big tablespoon of information. No more cherry picking what sounds good, what could fit the narrative. Give me all of it. It's going to be raw, rough, and hurtful, surprising, right? But we need to know these things so we can better move accordingly, however we need to move accordingly, right? And then, choose to make up our mind then and there. Use our discernment then and there. But if you are running with one narrative and you're in places where people, it's just always, for better, for better lack of term or word, blackity black, right? It's this tunnel vision. It's this one-minded narrow, right? And I appreciate a Dane Calloway who is making us think, or a what is his name? He's from I think he's from Costa Rica. Where Kuro Amaru, I forgot that that's his whole name, but he's from Costa Rica, and he's he's Latin, but he's also like what they call Afro. Now they throw in the Afro, South American or whatever like that. You're like, I don't even know if that's, people make up all these kind of names and words. But anyway, he's on YouTube as well, and he brings this information of the ancestors here in the Americas, talking about South America, Central America, the Caribbean islands, and North America, and getting us to have another side of another piece of the pie, if you will. And if some of the countries in Africa, we will say, oh, these are great, and everybody bigs up the pyramids in Egypt and so forth and so on. They don't want to talk about what's going on over here, and how there actually are the same things that they found in the Egyptian pyramids and tombs, identical over here in the Colorados, in the Grand Canyon, excuse me. So, so I think this is where that pinnacle, the crossroad is, like I said in my live last week, that it's this bubbling up to the top, where this information is starting to hit the hill with each other, and eventually it's going to explode, not in a bad way, but people are going to understand both perspectives, and that's a good thing. That's the good thing, because we need to. Some people might feel a little aggressive about it, where they're going to want to steer you in the way of what they say is the truth, by saying, oh, the slave ships in Africa, right? And then you're going to have others. And the ones that talk about America's land is the ancient land, they don't really, I've noticed there's a difference. They're the people that the people that talk about America being the ancient land, and there were indigenous people here and, the civilizations, they're not as belligerent as people who are talking about Black power and the Pan-African movement. I have really come to notice that now, thinking about it, that the people who are educating the collective about the Americas, Central, South, and the Caribbean island, they just talk to you as educators. They're not saying, now there's some that say, tribal, throw your feathers up. But it's more like affectionate. And there isn't this hostile undertone, if you will, with expressing, indigenous ancestors in the land. And when you hear of I'm going to put the Black power word in, as prideful as it may sound, it's almost borderline aggressive. And this is where we're coming to the hilt with, or the tilt with, going back to your reparations and things like that. And it becomes this hostile thing. And then it's like, well, you don't understand your history. And your fight is not with the person that looks like you. It can be, but they're across the country. They're across the world. You got to give everybody that same energy, that same heat that you're giving to these Europeans that you say took and pillaged. And because I was running with that for a very long time, since grade school. We were taught they came over, they pillaged, they stole, they did disgusting and devious sexual acts to the women, right? We heard that. I heard that. Now as an adult, I'm getting information from somewhere else. And that sounds like music to my ears. It makes me really think even deeper. Because as I just broke down with my family history, we didn't talk about we didn't put two and two together with the African descendants that we have, the African bloodline. The Caribbeans were home, the West Indies were home, and then they migrated and went to live in the Americas, or rather North America, and became nationalized citizens there. So they just assimilated and went on about their business. They capitalized where they could, and they didn't have any issues. Now, granted, I did say that there was some family members, some ancestors that were enslaved and on a plantation there in Jamaica. We didn't have the slave plantation here in America where they showed the injustice, right? They always showed that. They rarely showed, rarely, not that they never showed, but they rarely showed the slavery that was going on in Jamaica, Grenada, in Haiti, in Barbados, Antigua. But there were. And the smaller the islands, the worse it was, because they were treating the people there, I mean, like really chattel slaves, like animals. So um, rarely, like I said, that's talked about. And then to follow up behind that, it's the Africans that were brought from over in Ghana, Ivory Coast, the West Africans, came to the Caribbean island. And you're going to tell me that those are the makeup of the slave trade? Mm-mm. I'm not buying what you're selling anymore, sir. Like, just, it's because there were people already there. There were people already there that were being enslaved. There were white people being brought over to the West Indies from the States, from Germany. And that's where we have to go back and dial it back a little bit, because it was not just Africans. And again, some people like, I don't want to hear, that's the blackity black. I don't want to hear about white people. But that's where I'm saying that there's this semi-hostile type of energy behind it. And it's like, listen, you're going to have to hear it all. And the ones that push back too much on that are really going to have a hard time collecting their thoughts on what I just read to you about J.A. Rogers. So I've been going into the, like I said, I'm in the pro-black sites on Instagram, sometimes on YouTube, and, feeding them the information that I'm learning. And of course, I get the pushback from it. And when there are people that do talk about the Americas and, this land being ancient and so forth and so on, and do talk that history, I'm then adding on to that as well and talking. And then it's right, sis. Or yep. And there's this less aggressiveness behind it. And then that's why it makes you like not want to talk to people or talk to some people, because if you're on this one track mind and you're just getting the narrative from somebody else that told you, and you haven't even done the footwork, you just running with the playbook, it's going to sound incredible for somebody to come out and then say, the Americas, this is what was going on, and we're the ancient land here. Because they're going to still spin it to, well, Africa's the motherland. And I really, again, it becomes this debate. And that's where I get a little annoyed, because it's like, I'm not here for debate. I'm giving some knowledge in return to get knowledge. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But the whole, you get nasty. These people be coming sideways sometimes at me. And I'm like, my tone is not nasty when I speak to people. The tone comes back as a little aggressive. It's a little aggressive. So we have to do this due diligence, guys. Anybody want to come up onto the panel? I just dropped the link. Now let the other cat out. There's always these damn cats. And I apologize if the internet it gets a little cut up. So yeah. So that's the nutshell of it all, guys. I wanted to just, like I said, revisit today. There goes the internet again. Okay, so just revisit today. To revisit J. Rogers' book, and have these kind of conversations from time to time, because there are distractions out there that are taking away from the pertinent information that we need to know, because we're getting wrapped up with the entertainment business and entertainment stuff. And it's like, listen, at the end of the day, that's all entertainment. People are worried about this guy who was in the movie Apollo Creed, and he allegedly, you know, grabbed up his girlfriend or whoever, wife or whatever. And we all know that those things are the what they call the humiliation rituals and stuff like that. Like, this is the season, right? Because we're in the holy seasons of Ramadan, of Passover, of Easter, Resurrection Sunday, and things like that. And this is when they start doing that stuff. And if we haven't learned by now, and we're getting all riled up in the whole, oh, but he's with a white woman and this, that, and the third. Listen, it's entertainment. Those are entertainers. They're actors. They're not even who they are. So for you to give so much credence to them, instead of picking up books, you want to argue about nonsense about these entertainers. You guys get upset about knowledge being presented to you. I mean, like, I was walking around, like I said, I had my little medallion pieces and the Nefertiti's and all that stuff back in the late 80s. And, when we were, the fight the power and all that Black power and things like that. And it's a sense of pride, it's a sense of unity. We feel like it's, we're coming together on this one accord. And what happened after that? You have party and bullshit. You got drugs being pumped in heavily. And that pride that you were sporting around went to turning into a Little Kim and a Foxy Brown. And now you got their grandchildren or their daughters, Cardi B and Nicki Minaj. I'm talking about the prototype. I'm not talking about the artists. They're rapping and styles like that. Or who's the other little one? The Ice Spice or whatever her name is. You thought I was feeling you? Just waiting for the service. Hold on. Just waiting on the service. Okay. I just noticed the internet was trying to fudge, so I didn't want to talk. Yeah, so you have these daughters now and granddaughters out of the Little Kim and Foxy Brown, right? Because before that, you had Queen Latifah, you had who else? MC Light, you had okay, maybe that's what it is too, because it looks like it's gonna rain. Ugh, annoying. But it's StreamYard, because my connection on my tablet It's fine. It's like at full bar, but the StreamYard connection might be a little off. But anyway, yeah. So, that's what I'm saying. Like so we've been running amok for 20 some odd years, 25 plus years of this type of sexual, hypersexual energy, this low vibrational energy. So you went from being kings and queens, Queen Latifah talking about who you calling a B, right? To, now the sex is selling. So how can we fight this black power? Well, not fight it, but how can we co-opt it when we're still on some ratchetness? And when it's time to get civilized and it's time to discipline ourselves and sit down and read a book or sit down and listen to some educational information, I don't believe that. I don't want. Okay, you don't have to. You should do your research and get from different areas, get from different sources, so you have a better understanding of things. But it's like, you really have to choose and pick your battles at this point. And that's always been my motto. I choose and I pick my battle. Not everything is warranted to have an uproar about it. Not everything needs to be addressed. But I wanted to talk about this again and readdress it because, as I said, this is always here in our face. And like I said, the fact that I'm in certain arenas that are very pro, and it's not even nationality, like, because I'm not, I'm seeing like the Caribbean folks too is talking about this Africa, and I'm like, wow, okay. So nobody's really, they keep giving us what they're regurgitating the information that they heard from other people that's not like them, and you keep telling us that storyline. Did you hear from your family members that you had any of those ancestry DNA? Did you ask them? It's almost like you want to fit in with the cool class, with the cool clique. And it stems back from feeling like you never belonged. But you did. You had nations. As I read to you what America was. It was a tribal land. You always belonged. You just don't realize it. You choose not to realize it. I don't know. But you always belonged to a group of people. And those groups of people, that group of people, that's who you need to be embracing. That's who you need to have your connection with. And you need to do your homework and, honor your ancestors instead of just picking and choosing who you want. Because if it's hindsight, then it's everybody that you need to be giving homage to then. Or if you're going to be upset, you're going to have to be upset with some of them, those chiefs out there in Africa that was selling, throwing their slaves under the bus to the wolves so that they can get guns and horses. You going to just dismiss that like that didn't happen? because that's what they were doing. And my mother informed me today that in that mini series Shaka Zulu back in the 70s, late 70s, 80s, that's exactly what they were doing. The chief was giving his slaves to the colonizers. So yeah, you're going to have this docile, because they're already slaves. They're enslaved under the kings and the chieftains out there in these countries in Africa. Yeah, and some did fight and escape and stuff, but for the most part, you're talking about, because we're cherry picking history, and we got to stop that. That's silly at this point. It's silly. We're too old for that. Some of us are a little too old to keep going with that narrative. Now, the younger, we have to teach them everything, right? Give them all this information so that they can discern it. But we're not going to keep running with what has been going on for decades, even centuries. So you're going to tell me that somebody had argued with, not argued, but somebody had said in the comment, oh, you know, the colonizers, they had guns and they had weapons. And, you know, the Africans, they didn't really have, they were up against, you know, people that had guns and stuff. And yeah, sure, they fought back, but, you know, and I'm like, okay. Now, they might not be old enough to remember a Shaka Zulu. But yeah, them chieftains was selling out their people. So we got to keep that same energy that we keep giving to the Europeans, to the very own person that looks like you, your complexion, and you're going to have to take that heat to them. And guess what? They are not, they're far removed from that whole slavery situation. They have moved on. It is Americans, as they say, and people in the UK or in Britain that are holding on to that. People in the Caribbean, they're holding on to that slave narrative. But some of these folks out here in Africa, they've moved on. Moved on. So can you imagine? So then who do you talk to? Because they know that they had their family members enslaved by, you know, the tribal's chief, king. They know this. See, and people who wrote the books are not telling us about that side of the slave trade. They just want to tell us when they were at the port, the ship, the journey, and then landing over here to the western part of the country. But they're not telling us too much of those chieftains and those kings and those high priests and stuff. They had slaves. This is why there wasn't too much of a pushback from them. Some of them were, yes, getting out. They was trying to fight for their life to get out of there. They found their opportunity. Like, look, I'm leaving this person, this slaveholder. There's my chance. I could run and make it, or whatever. And yeah, possibly some did throw themselves overboard because they didn't want to go. But again, there were more enslaved Africans, looking at the pictures, or the drawings rather, because there's no physical picture, that there's maybe a dozen colonizers on the ship, and there's thousands of, so you mean tell me that they didn't go and conk people in the head and was fighting? Where's the warriors at? They were chained up. I don't know, guys. I'm just here to make us think. I'm not playing down that never happened. But the story is just it's starting to become incredible. It's starting to be incredible as to, wow, really? So when we start talking about, or some people talk about, the reparations and stuff like that, you're gonna have to talk to those people out there too. You're gonna have to come to them and say, hey, you sold such and such out here. How does it then happen that you're going to get anything back from it? Because if they were already slaves to begin with, it's not like, right, Lotus, it's not like these were people in the fields being productive, women and children, gathering up their food supplies and just walking around, and all of a sudden, there's a net, or there's these colonizers coming out of nowhere with their guns, their muskets, and they're rounding up these people. Like, I'm trying to picture it to make it make sense for me. But what I'm really starting to think is that no, these people were slaves to begin with, and the chiefs in charge and the kings in charge were doing what we call a Barto act with each other. Bartering. So I'll give you, 5 of these slaves, manpower. Right. They had one ship, Amistad, that said they revolted. Right? They gave us that movie, The Amistad. But you mean to tell me, out of all the ships going back and forth, there weren't no revolts on the ships? This is what I'm saying. And that's, Kanye was saying the same thing too. Right. Kanye was saying the same thing. And I was like, I didn't take it offensive. I didn't really care anything what he was saying, though. It didn't fluff my feathers to be like, oh, why is he being disrespectful? I was just like, okay. And when he's then presented and stated why he felt that slavery was a choice, it's like, oh, okay, see your point. See your point. But again, I think it was more to do with these people who were enslaved, were slaves to begin with. These, I wasn't there. We don't know. But if they want to paint a picture, then I'm going to paint a picture. And we're going to look at it through the lens of how I'm looking at it, so we can make some sense out of it. It's not like me and Lotus were out picking. We got the baby strapped up to us, right? The kids are out running around. Our husbands are out in the field or doing whatever they need to do, and we're picking up supplies for our families, right? And ooga booga, a European steps out with the mullet, with the musket, and starts pushing me and Lotus aside. Let's go. Now we're free Africans out there. We're minding our very Black-owned business. We're minding our business, and we're out in our area, our land. So They're making it like that's what was going on, that you had free people just roaming, and that these Europeans came and rounded up these people. Now here's my take on the picture that I want to paint. That's not the case. The people who were slaves were enslaved already, and it had to do with the white man, the European, making trades and deals with the Black, African, Negro, melanated man. I got these slaves for you, because guess what? Those Europeans know who's in charge. Now, here's the other narrative, here's the other picture that they want to paint. Oh, they captured the kings and the queens too. Possibly. Again, we weren't there, but it's possible. But I don't think that's a higher percentage as those chieftains and those kings giving their slaves away, because they weren't anything to them but slaves. It's chattel. So you're going to have the docile, you're going to have the compliant, because they're already being beaten and whipped. So yes, you'll have more slaves on the ship because they already are trained to not be aggressive. Now, if we're free people, Lotus and I walking around, I could see the revolt then, because I'm a free person walking around here, and all of a sudden somebody comes out of the bushes and hijacks me and my family, my kids. Then I see my husband and my son coming from the other side, being rounded up. Yeah, we're gonna that's, I could see that where the revolt is coming in, because if we're free people out there, we're not enslaved by the chief or the king. What is this? We're gonna fight back. As opposed to the slaves that are already enslaved, and they're not going to fight back because they've been already conditioned and in chains already to, right? That's what it was. They made a profit off of. So, the one ancestor that came over, that he was in my family, that he was, African descent, from Guyana. He was enslaved. They brought him to the islands. But that's one person. Again, that's 31%. It's not a small percentage, but it's not like half of it either. Now, if you do have a higher percentage, so if you got 60% that you are, from your family's Guyanian, I'm saying that wrong. If y'all from Togo or Benin, Cameroon, right, or the Ivory Coast and things like that, and you have a higher percentage, then I have nothing but to bow down and say, you know what? You got a lot of African DNA in you. Yeah. So, but now you have to take your gripes to those family members. But can you? Because if half of your family members were enslaved to begin with, you see what I'm saying? Where does the restitution come through? not reparations, restitution. Where do we repair? Where do we restore? What's ours? I don't know. How is it ours? I mean, like, I'm going in my head and I just want y'all to think, right? But if they came over here, which is what the colonizers did, and they, on the East Coast of America, they set up shop. The people who were here already, that got moved from their tribal nations, those are the people that need that reparations. Those are the people that get restoration, because they were moved and then enslaved and were sent down south, sent to the islands, sent across, to the Midwest. Those people are the ones that should be getting some type of restitution, some type of reparation. And I'm sorry, it's no slight to any African person, any DNA person that has African DNA. But y'all, that family came through on the ship. It's not like they were here and their land was taken away from them. And then you have to go through your genealogy to prove that you are an inheritant from, or a descendant rather, from here. And why they don't do the ancestry when they because they have a result. Where is it? Native. Isn't on here. It's not even on here on my aunt's results. But the Native American, those results are far and few. They always come back like 1%, 0%. It's always less than, I would say, 5%. Why is that? So they'll never have you trace yourself back to here, but they got you traced yourself out to Africa, Scandinavian. They got you all the way out where? Great Britain. That's like 1%. But it doesn't matter. They still have you all over except for where your family's from. Your family, if you can say and prove we have our ancestors are here from this land, then the DNA test is not going to show that, because it's not set up that way for you. Somebody was saying yesterday, oh, well, if you do, you do the DNA test. I'm like, how? It's not the percentage of showing Native, the percentage of showing that I have Taino and Arawak is very low. They can show all other ethnicities, but they're not going to give us the so-called Native American. Even if somebody else, if they have another percentage of ethnicity in them, but they also have Native here, with the natives and the Dakotas and stuff like that, Oklahoma, it's not going to show up. They're going to give them European DNA. And that's by design. That's why I'm kind of like on the fence with doing these tests, even though I would like to. But if you're not giving accurate results, and there's so many people that say that it's not 100% accurate. And it's not like there's an indigenous person here. Let's say you get somebody from South Carolina to do one of those tests. You would have to get more of them to do it so it can ping you back to here. But the only way you're going to do it is do the DNA through your family. That's how you're going to find out, more or less, and genealogy. But other than that, there is no ancestry for America, if you will. They're going to ping you right outside of where you are from. and make us think that you are everybody else but who you really are. And in the amazing book of Amazing Facts of the Negro, it tells you that there's people here. He says this. And he also mentions that there were white European slaves brought over here. And there were free Negro slaveholders with white slaves. This is what they don't want to tell us in mainstream. This is what they don't want to tell us in mainstream. Yeah, my aunt, I'm reading. My aunt gave, she did hers. My grand aunt, she did it. It matches with what her family's oral history. But I bet if we were looking for Arawak and we were looking for Taino, it wouldn't show up. Because they don't have that on there. They would have it as Native American. And that's still not accurate to the Tainos and the Arawaks of the Caribbean islands. And sure, you have Maroons from Cameroon, Africa, brought over. But you already had people who were living there way longer than the slave trade came through. And again, like I said, I'm in places where it gets a little hostile because then they want to prove, Nanny wasn't Queen Nanny, she fought the rebellion in Jamaica, and yeah, she's not a Jamaican, she was African, she's Cameroon, she's Maroon, right? And that's the type of thing that's like, all right, you debating again, because it's going to draw you right back to Africa, but you can't. The only way you could do the ancestry here is going through the that whole area and doing a collective data that way, and genealogy, because the blood test is not. It's just going to show you that you may have DNA that's similar and shares with other people, but they're not collecting the indigenous people's blood type here. They're collecting it and pinging you somewhere outside of this country. So does it make sense? So now the person who says, I have Blackfoot in my family, or we are Algonquin or Chickasaw, and they know this, and then they do a blood test that shows they have African DNA in them, it's going to be like, how? When they know they can trace back that pretty much everybody that they can do their genealogy on was here in the land. How do you tell that person that then does that blood test or the saliva test or whatever the case may be, you got African in you? That's what I'm saying. Like, I don't know what to, you know what I mean? Like, I want to do it just kind of like for entertainment purposes. But at the same time, it's like, it's not going to give me what I want to know. You get what I mean? Like, it's very cherry picked. And, in here, it does say that the Negro, there was lots of Negroes in this ancient civilization, that they were here. Negroes lived in America thousands of years before Columbus. Central America monuments show numerous carvings of them as gods. When Columbus came to the New World, Negroes had been crossing from Africa to South America, a distance of 1,600 miles. The first white men to reach America mainland tell of seeing Negroes. Columbus, who visited South America, said that he had heard of them there, talking about the Negroes. The present Negro race of Africa perhaps did not originate there, but back in Asia and Oceania. People are not going to want to hear that. They're not going to want to hear that. But if you look at the maps, ladies and gentlemen, when you go back into the 1500 maps or you go back further than that, you're going to see that Africa is connected with Asia. It's connected with Europe. And therefore, you have what you call Eurasia. They don't want that headache. They don't want to, they're going to keep giving us Kemet, and they're going to keep talking about, that part of history. And I get it. It's a beautiful history, and it is its own history. And that was there before, da 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 da. But you don't want to go back to America. You see what I'm saying? Like, what's the problem here? Because the problem is some people can't trace their roots back here because it's not traceable for them. You would have to do your genealogy. You would have to talk to some people to get some type of accuracy here. Because listen, who was it I was looking at? I mean, you could just tell in certain people's features. Their features are not, you could tell an indigenous person's features that were here from the land, then you could tell from somebody not part of this America. I mean, some of us can tell. And I got a good sense of distinguishing ethnicity. Got a lot of Brazilians in the South Americas that are like, African, right? And yes, there were Africans that were brought over there, but that is still part. The South Americans, you had what was before that. Before the Aztecs and the Mayans, you had the Olmecs. And those were Negroes with Negroid features and phenotypes. Wide nose, big lips. That's not African. They try to say, well, Africans was doing all that, bringing that over here. These are monoliths. What ship were they bringing that over here with? That's what I'm saying. Like, people, some people got to really sit down and really think about it. How are they bringing these big monolith Olmec heads over from Africa over here? On the ships on wooden ships? And those things weigh dozens of tons, thousands of tons. You're going to tell me that that head or the foot of an Olmec was brought over from Africa? That may be your message, Lotus. Now get into it. I'm showing you that is the order of the day. Because when you start to know, when you really dive into your history, it opens up the lenses for you. It gives you a better perspective of, your family history, your ancestors, right? And that's just the small part. The greater part is, the outside ancestors, meaning, if you have family members that are here, It's the nucleus, and then it's outside of that, right? So, merging, there could have been families that merged together here, and that happened a lot. You could have, the Algonquins here in northeast uh, New York City, Connecticut, and so forth, Massachusetts, the Iroquois, right? And they would marry off their daughters to the tribe that is, a prestigious tribe as well. And that merged the two, and they were power families. So they've been doing that here for a very, 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 very long time. And for us not to revisit that history, it's like, okay, so you're just cutting off one piece of your leg so that you can stand and look pretty with this other leg because somebody told you your leg is pretty. Now I need both my legs to stand. So now you're going to walk around with a prosthetic leg and a cane so you can walk. Because you heard somebody telling you your leg, that leg, right leg is beautiful. Look how it has to have some type of African in it. All right, y'all. I'm gonna go. I think I did enough. And I see nobody wanted to not cam up, but come up, and that's fine. Again, make sure to like, share, make sure to hit the notification bell so that you can get my message, my lives when I do come on from time to time. Okay. Cherokee, I could see that. I could definitely see that in your cheekbones. That's how you could tell. Our brother FL, when he comes on time to time. You could tell the cheekbones when you hear somebody say that they have Indian in their family. You could tell by the cheekbone. There's a distinct complexion, phenotype, structure of what the ancestors here looked like compared to the Negroid phenotype of someone in Africa. Their complexion also is different compared to the complexion of someone here in the Americas. So, case in point, once upon a time, I was talking with this Panamanian guy. Un chocolate. And I thought he was just a Black American guy from the Bronx. His name didn't strike me as, I forgot what his name was, but it wasn't like a Latin kind of name. So I was none the wiser. I had called up his house one time, and he's like, hold on a second, and start speaking Spanish. And I was like, oh, snap. I was like, I forgot, I asked him, was he, I asked him if he was Honduras, and he said, no, he's Panamanian. So that's South America. And he was very, he was chocolate. He was very milk chocolate-like complexion. And he told me, he said he was talking to his mother in Spanish. And I was like, I asked him if he was Honduras. He said, no, I'm Panamanian. I was like, It'll blow me down. And I was a teenager at the time. So come in all shapes and sizes and colors of the spectrum. And he had, he looked like, who can I say he looked like? He was really cute. He looked like the guy from Jodeci. Some of us will know who Jodeci is, an R&B group, Mr. Dalvin. He's that complexion. Now I hear him speaking in Spanish. I was like, who are you talking to? I thought I was talking to my mother. I was like, okay, alrighty then. So there's that Negro phenotype down there. Honduras, Panama. That's South or Central, Central America. So he didn't strike me as being African. I thought he was like really, like I said, a Black American guy. Probably from the South. Like most people left the South to move up north. But I was like, literally from that point on, then I could pick up who was Panamanian and who's Honduras. But they're very similar in complexion. They're very similar in especially the melanated ones. The ones with darker complexion. You couldn't tell. Brazil, Rio de Janeiro, you cannot tell until they open their mouth and start speaking Spanish that they are not, from North America. They're not from Harlem. They're not from the Bronx. Like, they're not from South Carolina. They're not from Texas. They come in straight from the central part of the Americas. But they can look like a brother, from up here. I'm like, okay. He didn't have an accent. He was very much so indoctrinated with New York City and Bronx, but I did not know. I was like, oh, cool. That was a great learning experience. So yeah, we have to just again do this type of research. And like I said, if you're good, you can kind of pick up on people's phenotype. You can tell who's, mixtured with what. You might not be able to pinpoint the exact location of where they're coming from, but you can pick up on who's who. Everybody has a distinct, I would say certain ethnicities have a very distinct look about them. And so, like I said, go back into history and go into the Olmecs, who were the Negroids here at the time, millennials ago. Like I said, wide nose, big lips. And then they were of melanated complexion or Negro complexion. You were here. There's a book called, oh my goodness, let me get it. It's called Before Columbus, or they were here before Columbus. Let me look it up. Gotta get that book too. It's, and it has the Olmec's head. Yep, this is how it looks, guys. So it's called They Were Here Before Columbus, and it's by Ivan van Sertima. Okay, and I'm going to show you what it looks like there. Okay, they came before Columbus. The African presence in ancient America. Ancient America. Okay, so this person knows that this is ancient America. Now they say African because when they, these Europeans, when they see a melanated person before then, right? They had categorized them as copper colored. But then the Europeans started saying that they're African because they didn't know how to categorize them. And so that's where the generalization comes in. They were here before, Christopher Columbus, the African presence in ancient America. Well, yeah, but not African presence. So, because again, now we're removing the ancestors that were here and giving them the name African, which isn't the real name either. It's coming again from Europeans with that name Africa, right? I'll keep along. But we get the gist of it. It doesn't matter. We get the gist of it. But they've taken the ancestors' names that were here before and then labeling it African. It's not the case. That's why I have a problem. I'm getting this hang up of no, can't call everybody African. That's melanated. They're not. I just told you, I gave you a prime example. Dude I was talking to was not what you would call an African American. You could say he's black, but he's not. It's not African descent. And maybe there might be, could be, but I just said, especially down in Central America where the Panama Canal and Panama is, that's close to the equator of the earth. So everybody's complexion was dark down there. They're closest to the sun, to the equator. That heat, the tropics. So yeah, they're going to be of a darker complexion than some up north who are maybe a fairer skin or lighter. But don't get it confused. That's not African. They want to tell us that the Africans were here, ancient America. Like if you look at the maps again, and we start looking at Pangea, where's that map? See, hold on. Let me see if I have that saved. I probably don't. Darn it. Anyway, somebody had posted on Instagram, and I find her to be credible. Aquarius Maximus, and she's a cartologist. She posted a picture of with all the continents put together, and how Eurasia, if it was the content of the picture of the post that she put up was of a fetus, a human fetus, equivalent to the shapes of the continent put together. So at the top would be the brain, the head, and that would be equivalent to Eurasia, Europe. The heart of the fetus is the Americas, North America, South America. And then the stomach of the fetus with the continents put together was Africa. So again, that made me start doing the wheels of turning again to think, so if that's head, we're heart, and then their stomach, what came first? It goes back to the chicken or the egg. Now this, she didn't make the correlation. This was a post that she got, but that's how we're looking at the maps, because that's how the maps were drawn eons ago. Yes, the continents were connected. There is this theory, or actually it's in a book. I forgot the name of the book. It's kind of like a picture book. And it shows Phoenix, or Arizona rather, in the Grand Canyon and the canal going through there. If you're going by the Pangea theory, right? And Africa was at the bottom. Well, the canal went straight through South America into what they call modern day Egypt, which is Africa. And that's how certain resemblances in Egypt look like these artifacts that they found in the Grand Canyon back in the 1900s. So yeah, they can prove that there were ships or boats that could travel through the Grand Canyon, the canals through there, and you can still go through this. Not to hit, obviously, the continents have broken apart, but if you've been to the Grand Canyons, you know what I'm talking about. If not, but you've seen pictures, you know that there's like waterways and little canals, little channels that you can like actually get on a little boat and do a river raft and stuff. But they also have closed off certain sections because they had found mummies wearing like what we would look at as Egyptian garbs. Government, it's like an Area 51. They have it blocked off. Why is that? They don't want anybody to go back down into those tunnels and look and dig and see, because there's gold down there. They took out, evacuated the mummies and all the artifacts and stuff like that they were buried with. But they're almost duplicate to the mummies out in Giza and what you call it out there in Egypt. That's in Africa. So again, if I just gave you a visualization of this fetus and the brain being Asia, Eurasia, the heart being the Americas, and then the stomach being Africa, then it's very plausible that there was a canal at one particular time in whatever age, I don't know if it's the Ice Age or whatever the age is, right? That the canal could connect to Africa and hit Ethiopia and Egypt, because that's the top part of Africa. That's the northern part of Africa. So we got to do our our geography and know and study the land. That's what's throwing some of us off, because we're not scholarly enough. We need to stop. We got to really get back in those books, because these people know things. And if you want to know the truth, you're going to have to dive into the books as well. Yes, it's great to hear YouTube people, breaking stuff down. It's great. That's how I got some of my information. And then I just started looking online as well. And then just my own God-given sense just started kicking in. Like, this is making sense for me. Putting it together, 1 and 1 is 2. We're adding other equations to the factor, and it's not relevant. It's just making it like, oh, that looks good, but it's not relevant. Now, if you could say that there was a canal that connected, and that's how there was commerce going back and forth from Egypt to America and back and forth. Come on, man. And I'm talking about when they were connected. Come on, man. That's why we can't let these people just okie doke us and keep running around with the whole, I can't even talk. It's saying it in here in this book as well. He's spelling it out for us. He's written it out for us. Civilization. Now, where's civilization in this book? Jews and Ethiopians, all right? According to the Mohammedan tradition, Moses was a black man. All right, that's from Sir T.W. Arnold. From the book, The Preaching of Islam, page 106, Westminster, 1896. This book was written. And according to Sir Arnold, he says according to the Mohammedan Muslim tradition, Moses was black. The argument so often made the Miriam's objection to Moses' Ethiopian wife was one of color is wrong. There was no color prejudice then. Besides, the Jews at the time were also colored. Miriam's objection must have been a national or tribal one, the same as exists among the Negroes on the West African coast now, and among the Jews themselves in India. Listen to that, guys. That was a whole lecture, right? That was a whole nother lecture right there. I'm going to read it again because that was something to digest. I have to process this right quick. So they didn't have prejudice, colorism, going back in that time, Moses's time. Why? Because she was of color. She was of, melanated descent as well. She wasn't Negroid, but she was of a melanated complexion. It says here, the argument so often made that Miriam's objection to Moses' Ethiopian wife was one of color is wrong. There was no color prejudice then. Besides, the Jews at the time were also colored. Miriam's objection must have been a national or tribal one, the same as exists among the Negroes on the West African coast now and among the Jews themselves in India. So that's, see what I'm talking about? It's the order of the day, tribalism. She probably had a problem, not by the color of her skin, but who her clansmen were, who her tribe was. And that's where the problem was. No, I don't want you with that group of people. So, now ancient civilization here. What does it say here? Okay, so here's one portion that says, the testimony of eyewitnesses as well as that of modern science is that the Egyptians were Negroid. That is to say, largely mulatto, and the Ethiopians unmixed Negroes. Herodotus, 484 through 482 BC, very distinctively says that the Egyptians had black skins and woolly hair. Okay, this is in the section of civilization in this book. All right. The presence of the Negro in America before Columbus, C.C. Marquez says, the Negro type is seen in the most ancient Mexican sculpture. The Negroes feature frequently in the most remote traditions of the American pueblos. It is to this race, doubtlessly, belongs to most ancient skeletons of very distinct structure of two of the red American races, which have been found in various places from Bolivia to Mexico. Where's Bolivia? In South America. Then it tells us where to go. Estudios Argolicos, page 270 through 273, Madrid, 1920. See also Professor R.B. Dixon, Racial History of Mankind, page 400, 401, 409, 441, 449. Dixon emphasizes the fact that there was an early Negro strain in the Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Central American Indians. Columbus says he wanted to find out what the Indians had told him that there had come to it from the South and Southeast Negro people. This is the journey of the third voyage, page 6. So yeah, okay, and you got Negroes going all the way up into Rhode Island, Massachusetts, and Central America. Again, that's just letting you know that there were tribal people here. There were indigenous Negroid people here already, and they were all up and down the coast, east coast of North America, going down to Central and South America. They were there. They were there. So again, to get the whole out of Africa thing, they only labeled it African, right? Because they didn't have another name for it. They didn't know how to translate what the tribal people were saying regarding their names. They didn't know how to equate that. So they just labeled them all African, just like they do now. Oh, all you black people are the same. All y'all look alike. Okay. But then if we turn around and say that about them is wrong, right? So whatever the case may be, I'm not here for the tit for tat. I don't do that. I don't do that at all. Because that's just childish. Because we're dealing with intelligentness here, intelligence, and we're dealing with what is being stated, facts. We're not doing the immature tit for tat nonsense. We're not going to get aggressive to try to prove that there were indigenous people here in the Americas. We're not going to get hostile. We're not going to get upset about it. We're not, trying to twist anybody's arm, right? We're not doing the aggressiveness. We're just presenting some information, quoting some sources where you can go to look it up. And we're just here to make you think about it. That's it. No one's twisting anyone's arm. You don't believe it, I'm not going to I don't need to convince you. I just tell it like it is. Paint the picture that I have in my head, show it to you guys, right? And then you use your own inference from it. If it's not making sense, then that's not. It's not. So I think we're good. I've dropped the link down a couple of times. I'm not sure if anybody wants to come through and stop up here and talk. You don't have to show your face. You don't have to cam up. But do make sure to hit that like button, and make sure to keep the notification bell up. And I will text behind the scenes and send you, if we're Instagram people's, I will send you the notification. Sorry, I sent it out late, my bad. But yes, the notification is very important, as well as hitting the like button, because it keeps me in that flow. But I'm happy we got 30 subscribers, and just within the past couple of days, I think there was about 5 new subscribers. So I appreciate that. And those who have been rocking out with me for a long while, I thank you for, participating and engaging in this new channel. Like I did have it specifically for the Mindful Mondays, but I like to have different conversations. Doesn't always necessarily have to be something like this or political, but I always gotta go. I don't like to do the gossipy thing too much, so you won't really catch me. Like I have to make it intelligent. Like it has to be newsworthy. I'm not a gossip columnist, so you won't really get gossip like that over here. But if it is about entertainment, or an entertainer, I will bring merge what they're talking about with some reality, right? Because we know that they're entertainers. They live in la la land. They don't live how the regular person, a 9 to 5 or whatever. They don't live like that. They live in another world that's make believe. Yeah, they're in the reality. They live in a real world, but they are in a uh, delusional fantasy that only a few can live like that, right? So I will try to merge whatever the issue is of that person or people to correlate to some stuff, something similar to what I just did today. So sorry if you're looking for gossip. It's not. We're going to be talking about health and staying right with our bodies. We're going to be talking about investing and things of that nature here, and educating each other is what we're doing here. And then also on the my other channel there, that's for the readings and inspirational messages and intuitive messages. And sometimes it gets intertwined with the a mindful Monday type of um, energy, if you will. But I just, it's about teaching at the end of the day, and just trying to get us to really get on the other side of the fence with the information that we're being taught to us. And some of the information is suppressed. Let me put in the chat here for those who are interested in buying Brother Truth Kalani's books, and or wanting to change status, or just looking to invest in gold or silver. And his Instagram, let me put that in the chat. And I've been rocking out with this brother for about maybe about 5 years now. Okay, I've went to his workshop. He's like a little brother in that respect, because he is younger than me, but he's teaching. He's phenomenal. I didn't know all this stuff. This wasn't taught to me by my family, wasn't taught to me in school. And here, this young man, my nose is itchy, is bringing that knowledge. All right. So let me get his, this is IG. If you're interested in just, getting your affairs in order, he does have a person that does work with people who want to get their genealogy done. If you want to change your status, or you want to get like your license plate, your ID, the passport that changes over, to sovereign, he works with you with that. All right. So yeah, that's interested in doing that, or just want to learn. You know what I mean? Like, you just want to learn some things. You don't have to dedicate yourself to this. It's just something for us to think. It gives us more options than what the options are out here now, right? So I put that in the chat, and let me post that up for you guys. All right, so Brother Truth Kalani, that's his IG, and his website is iselfammaster.com. You can get his Remedy series books. He's got 1, 2, and 3. I got 1, because this one really is good, because it talks about the estates, correcting the political status, right? So, and building your own sovereign family and nation. So again, me growing up, I always heard about nationality, which is nation. I never heard what's been thrown at us now. You know what I mean? So hearing him and then actually going to his workshop and getting his book then and there, I was just like, wow, this is just mind blowing, and it's great information to have, because you need to know. Also, invest in getting a law dictionary. I heard that Black's Law uh, edition number 4 is one of the best to have. And I'll put that in the chat as well. The man's name is Black. It's not because it's a black. I don't even think he's a black person, but it's called Black's Law Dictionary. The Constitution wasn't made up of melanated people either, right? But you need to study it. All right. Because it's information you need to know. When you're hearing about Amendment number 14, you're a chattel. How does that measure up? Where does that fit in the grand scheme of things of you wanting to, get restitution and reparation? You feel me? You feel me? What's another book? Definitely you want to get the Constitution. You want to read, the rights. And I would also make a suggestion to get the English etymology dictionary. So you know what, how to use words that are in the English book there, and how they use it, and how you can use it, and how you can understand what it means, because they have meanings behind these words, and we're just out here saying things, and you really need to know the etymology behind it. Just like I explained to you about the word black. It's less offensive using the word Negro than it is saying black and colored. But where does that word black come from? What's the etymology behind that, right? So getting that English etymology dictionary is a good thing to have as well. I'm going to be investing in that. So whatever new books that I come across, or that I'm thinking about getting, I'm definitely going to show you guys. I'm definitely going to put you on to. I wish that brother Zayd had come through, because he's got a plethora of books. He could definitely school us on some books, and just school us on some knowledge. I don't have all the information, guys. I'm coming from more of intuitive and just picking up knowledge, but I'm still a student at the end of the day, guys. I'm still a student. I'm not a master teacher in that respect, so I'm learning along with you, and what I learn, I'm sharing the knowledge, and that's what that's what we should be doing with each other, is sharing the knowledge, and not doing a fear mongering and a fear campaign where it's the stuff that media is showing us. Like we really need to be in these type of books. We really need to know about ancient history, because they know it, and they haven't changed the rule books in a very long time. If 1856 is when they came out with the 14th Amendment, and we're in 2023 and they still uphold that, that's got to let you know something. So we got to fall into place with learning that stuff, because those paradigms will be shaking eventually. It's not going to be there for much longer, because new rules and regulations need to come. You mean to tell me those rules and regulations have been sitting there for 200 plus years? They get amended, but they still stayed the same, right? And so this is why we need to learn, go into these dictionaries, these law dictionaries, and read up on what it's all about. It's very important. Um, also, if you're interested in reading about, the Moors and more science, because that goes back into being sovereign, and that goes back into the laws in tribal. If that's, because that's another school of thought as well. But if you're like, listen, I know who my tribe people are, I know who my clans members are, my kinfolk, that's how we're operating, then so be it. Because remember, like I said early in the beginning of this live, is that America was built, there were nations already here. There were nations already way before the 13 colonies came into place, way before Columbus came here. There were nations striving, civilizations thriving here that went through their own customs, their own laws, their own regulations, etc. So, if your family's members still kind of take those laws in the laws of this country, then, so be it. But that's the name of the game, and they know it. They don't want everybody to know it, and this is where they keep throwing us for the loophole of sending us with 1619 projects. You're gonna throw us with a slave revolted. You're gonna throw us the woman's kingdom. You see what I'm saying? They're spoon feeding certain things. They're cherry picking with us because they want to keep us back out there. And they want to turn your mind and your direction elsewhere and not pay attention to the real deal going on here. In the country that you live in the country where some of your ancestors made it great and helped build their nation up and fought alongside their soldiers for the greater good. We need to give honor and veneration for those ancestors as well, not just overseas, but here. They went through a lot as well. Their land was taken away from them. It's not like they were stripped and taken from their family. Their land was taken from underneath their foot. Oh, well, why didn't they fight back? Didn't they fight back? Yeah, they fought back. But then they were getting demolished with the nasty funkiness and diseases that these people were bringing over here. No, it didn't happen all at once. We saw what happened when they had the pandemic happen. But not for once should you exclude those ancestors that were here first and give them the homage that they deserve, because their essence is here, was shaking up stuff. This is why you see all these supernatural things happening, tornadoes and snow in places that it's not supposed to be snowing in. Droughts where never was a drought before, all in this country. We're not talking about Turkey. God bless the souls that were lost out there. But have you seen the tornado that just happened recently? And how homes were shattered and destroyed there? How California was having snow not a couple of days ago? And then a couple of days before that, Texas had snow a couple of years ago that they've never seen, that it messed up people's homes because they weren't equipped to handle freeze. Texas is hot. What are you talking about snow down there? And they got a couple of inches of snow. But they weren't, what messed Texas up in certain parts of Texas was that they could not handle the deep freeze that was happening. And so people were, they had lost their heat in their homes. Pipes were bursting. They weren't used to that type of, it's not like it's up in New York City or in Massachusetts where we're used to that type of cold and snow. And we're used to that type of weather. So we can handle 6 feet. I mean, listen, Buffalo got hit with 20 inches of snow about 3 years ago. All right. So we're used to that. The Texas was not. And that's where you had a lot of people who were frozen to death. They starved to death. The electricity was out. They had lost power. I think their power was out for like a week or two. So yeah, this is partly the ancestors. The other part could be man-made. We know what they're doing. But our ancestors are working behind the scenes to get some stuff done. And unfortunately, some innocent people along the way are going to be injured or worse. So we have to, keep paying homage and saying thank you and apologizing. Just really getting into that humbleness and not this whole bravado of, that's not doing anything. You're not giving that energy to the Capitol. You're not going to the White House with that type of energy. You walking around with the little picket signs again, and it's like, no, you should be out there all the time then, giving them that same energy. Not when somebody's, God forbid they're dead because of some brutality, fatality. Like, we need to still be staying on that all the time. If you're so tough Tony in social media, you're not out there doing any type of protest, but you got all the energy, or you say you got all the smoke in social media to say, blackity 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 black. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with feeling that pride. But you need to know your history. And Donald Trump has said that. He said people need to know their history. And when you know the history, you know the history of the land, and you know your own history, people are going to be talking a little differently. There's not going to be this animosity. I think there will be respect. And that's the other thing. That's the word of the day and the order is the respect. I don't gotta like you, but I'll respect what you're doing. And if it's not following along towards moral issues, and it goes against the grain, then I'm not respecting you either. Now I don't like you and I don't respect you. But when we come to that common ground on things, it's like, all right, I'll give you a nod and we keep it moving. We're not all going to agree on certain things, but there's this commonality that we're like, all right, we can see that. And how do we move forward with this situation? Because we keep talking about the injustices, but where's the solutions again? How are we? Solution, part of it is reading, actually, so you can figure out how to maneuver and make things, do things differently. And then taking action. Now what you read, you go apply. If you can't apply, you spread the news to somebody else. Maybe they can apply. If you're not in a position to make things happen and make things move, but you got this insight here, then you're part of a solution. You got intel to now pass this information along to somebody else who could probably execute it a lot better than you. Maybe you're not in a financial position. Maybe you're just not in any type of position where you can go ahead. Maybe that's not for you, but you have information and you could spread that to somebody else. And you don't know who you're talking to and who could spark off on make things happen. Tupac said, I may not be the one to, be able to do things, but I bet you I'll spark the brain that will set it off for somebody to make the difference. And I'm paraphrasing, but you understand what I'm saying. You don't know who you're talking to, that your idea or your solution or your intake or your intel from reading something has now infused into somebody else that they're like, all right, I could probably do this. I could probably do that. And then take off with it. And that's how we keep moving. We're all not going to be wearing capes around here and flying and being Superman. You just can't. Not everybody can do that. You got to know where your position is. You got to play your part. And if your part is very small, just as myself, and giving this information and giving you some sources, then that's my part. I did my part. I can't beat myself up any more than if, yeah, sure, I would love to do more, be out there a little bit more, but I can't. I'm not in a position where I can. So I share the intel, and then that's how we keep it moving. And paying it forward is now I'm learning from somebody else. I may be learning from this person that I just shared information with. You get what I mean? So don't ever think that what you strive to do is pointless, because you play a significant part, no matter how small or how big it is. You play an important part in the grand scheme of things, if you want to be about solutions. That's the name of the game at this point as well. You want to be a part of the solution, and you can only give a certain piece of that. That's it. That's it. Trust me, somebody's going to appreciate that, because you don't know what you've done for that person. Just like I appreciate this, and I'm going to leave on this note. All this information that I'm talking to you guys about, 30 years ago, about 28 years ago, I used to sit in a cipher. I think I've told you guys this once before, but I had, we would have these smoke sessions or powwows. Me and my best friend or my best friend and I, and we would sit with maybe about 4 guys, and we would be in our powwow session, smoke our little herb, and I used to like to go down into Manhattan and what they call Greenwich Village as a teenager, because it was a very freeing, liberating area. Those who know about New York City and know about the Village, it's very artsy. It's very no judgment. There's of course that's where one of our San Francisco had their big Pride Month or Pride history, and we did here too in New York City back in the 60s, Stonewall. And so there's always been this type of freedom in that area. And with me going down there, there were some brothers that were selling incense and the African soaps and stuff. And then they had these booklets, kind of like this, or maybe a little bit smaller, like in size. And they were by Dr. Malachi Z. York of the Nuwapian Nation. And I've always been a seeker of knowledge, I guess. And I've always been a seeker of spirituality, religion. And it's now when I did my chart, it all makes sense. My North Node is in Scorpio. So yeah, that's all about metaphysics and spirituality and theologians and things like that, theology. And so I picked up this book, and I picked up like 2 books. And one was what are clouds, and the other book I cannot remember what the title was, but I had brought these books back up to the Bronx, and in one of our powwow sessions I had brought the book out, and man, oh man, I think one of the guys took my book, and he had said years later, like back in 2016, oh my goodness, you don't know, like that's something like the guys would do, like educate each other. But I brought that wisdom to them, and he was very appreciative. Another one of the guys in that we found each other on Facebook, and I was going through one of my many issues in my nuclear family that it was a stressful moment in time. And it's like just an angel just came, sat on my shoulder. And this guy was sending me PDF files of all these books. One was of J.A. Rogers. All these books, propaganda. Um, and I couldn't thank him enough. And he said, "It's the tables are turned, and it's my turn because you gave us this knowledge." And that was 1990. So 2015, that was 20 years later. I got it back in return. So the knowledge that I was giving to the fellas and to my best friend and to me, because I was learning as well, came right back around. And he would just fill my email with all these books, these PDF files. And I just was like, wow, I felt like it was Christmas. I was just so overwhelmed with the love, and that was just a gift. Like, oh man, this really came back. It's a boomerang. And then telling me like places to look up, like Underground Railroad and Red Pill and Sonetta, and then listening to Know the Ledge, and I'm like, wow, this is like everything that I had talked about 20 years ago. So can you imagine? I'm just a teenager, and I'm giving this information to these teenage guys, and they were maybe about a year or so older than me, but I still was giving this knowledge to them and taking it in, and then we having our powwows and discussing what was in the books and doing these ciphers, right? And for it to come back to me 20 years later and give me a whole new different content to look into. So I've always been that seeker, and now I'm like, oh cool, I got this information. And then these people that he was telling me about go on to YouTube, and that was it. I was hook, line, and sinker, and hook, line, and sink. You know what I'm saying? That it just, again, it came back in full circle for me, and it fed me. It fed my mind. It fed my soul, because I was going through some things, like I said, and I needed that pick me upper, and that's exactly what I got. I got fed with knowledge and soul and spirit. So you don't know who you could be blessing. You may not ever see it come back in this lifetime, or you may see it, it'll come back later on. You don't know whose path you've crossed, and you've given some information to them, and it comes back unexpectedly out of nowhere. And I hadn't spoken to this guy in years. As a matter of fact, he was my best friend who was with me at the time. That was her boyfriend. And I just be coming over there with the books. I didn't have much to contribute to getting ganja. So me and her would just get like Phillies and black and what was the other ones? Anyway, we would supply the paraphernalia, and I'd supply the knowledge. They had the bud, but you don't know who you are blessing in your path just by you sharing some information. And like I said, I'm still a student. I've been a student since then. I'm a student now. Learning as I go along, learning stuff I didn't know about 100 amazing facts. And now reading it and getting into it and seeing that there were white slaves. I mean, come on. We're learning here. Yeah. Didn't have all that kind of money. I was a teenager. So I was like, listen, I got 50 cents to put on for this Philly, or Dutch Master. That's what it was, Dutch Master. So I'm like, I got 50 cents. I got $1. And that's my contribution. So, guys, thank you so much again for hanging out, especially my Lotus. Always appreciate her. We're in 3 hours right now, 3 hours and 13 minutes. So thank you for taking the time out this afternoon, getting some information, and going back to do your research and do your due diligence to see how that applies with you. And if it means you need to go do your genealogy and start working on that, then so be it. It's a beautiful thing. It's very interesting. It can be, taxing and the time, so it can be a little bit much sometimes. But you take your time on it. You're here. You're learning. It's not a race. You take your time with that. All right. So, what else? Wednesday, I will set a notification for you guys. But Wednesday on Foxy Moon Premieres, I will be doing all of the signs, reading for all signs for the Aries season. So make sure to tune in with that. There is all you got to do is just hit the notification bell on that, because I already put that up on that page. And I will set a reminder for everybody else behind scenes if they haven't gotten a notification. So yeah, you definitely don't want to miss that, because that's the all signs. So I go into it could be for your sun sign, your moon sign, your Venus, however. But you don't want to miss that, because that is for your Aries month season. All right, guys. Thank you, my Lotus. Much appreciated. And to Maybach, who came through, he's listening. And who else did we have here earlier? Wally and my beauty queen came through. I appreciate you guys. Booster came through. Salute. Thank you so much for showing the love. All right. And for everybody who's catching the replay, I thank you so much. I appreciate you guys. And again, please do not forget to hit that like button on your way out if you haven't already. And definitely hit that notification. And I will catch you guys on the flip side.